In this video we're going to create our first controller, and this will represent our home page. And the first thing you'll realize is that our home page is actually the welcome controller here. And what is telling this to be the welcome controller? Well, that's a configuration setting that we can easily change. So head over to your config folder and then go to your routes file. And scroll down a little ways and you'll see default controller is welcome. And I'm going to change this to home. Okay, and that's all we have to do. Next we have to actually create a home controller. So in your controllers folder, right click, create a new PHP file and call it home. Now I would like to be able to create an index controller because we're probably used to an index PHP file being a home page, but we can't do that. So to begin, to make our controller, we'll say class home. Now make sure your home is capitalized and that your file name is lowercase. Okay? And your class name has to match the name of your controller name. It's part of how the internal system routes it. Extends CI, and here's another reason I like an IDE. We get all these code hints. And we're looking for CI controller. Okay? And this basically is extending the CodeIgniter's built-in controller so that we can inherit all the functionality. We'll learn more about this later. So the first thing we're going to do is create an index function. So I'll say public function index. And let's say echo homepage. Okay? And if we go back to our project and we just get rid of the slash and hit enter, this should not show the welcome page here. Looks like I got a little bit of a caching issue on Chrome. Sometimes you have to open the developer tools and go to the network tab. You can right click and just clear your browser cache, because I have to refresh a couple times in some of these videos. So this is our home page, and you notice that this is the default controller. Additionally, if we were to type /home, it would still be this page. So that's how it routes it. From our controller, we're not just going to echo out plain text like this. We're actually going to load a view. So let's open our views. And remember, we made those include files. So what we're going to do is try those out. I'm going to say this, and remember, this is referencing the class, and this is inherited from the controller. Load view. And the view name, I do inc, that's for the folder name, / header view, and you don't put the file extension in here. Okay? And we also have a footer. Let me get rid of this. We're also going to load the footer view. Okay? And let's refresh and see what happens. And you can tell something happened, and we have our title up here. If I actually view the page source, we have this right here. It looks like the footer isn't being included. So let's see what happened there. If I go to my header, well, it looks like it's because we have to include our URL class. Remember how I have this right here? We have to include the helper. So I guess that'll introduce us to the autoloader. You're pretty much going to want to use the URL helper all the time. It's terribly useful. So I'll go to config, autoload, and scroll down a little ways. Not packages, not libraries, helpers. Now the first time you do this, you're going to probably feel like we jump to the autoload a lot, and we jump to the routes or different files a lot to configure things. But what happens is you make a project and then you get used to what you need, and you won't have to fiddle with a whole bunch of stuff. The reason I might feel like we're fiddling with a lot of things is because we're just putting settings in. Okay, so let's go back here and refresh, and that did not help. I load the helper, URL, refresh. So back to the header view, base URI must not be a function. And that's because it is not URI, it's URL. Sorry for the mistake. After working in a couple different frameworks, sometimes you get a little tripped up. So base URL, that's our correction, okay? Not URI. And I'll refresh, and there's the rest of the code, okay? So now we have our first controller set up. Our next video will be about setting up the view.